All right, here we go on a Wednesday. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We are live from the Battle of the Badges today, a very exciting event, the 14th annual Ascension St. Thomas Music City Battle of the Badges presented by the Tennessee Titans. We're hanging out in the East Club, the Nissan Stadium. Kirby Allen Kirby, CJ out here with me. Lucas is back in the studio. Hello, bud.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you doing something?
Yes, you did.
Busy. Very rushed. It's my favorite thing to do. You want to jump in on the show? You're more than welcome. 615-737-1045. That's the number. 615-737-1045 is how you get things done. Lucas, these are my favorite kind of shows because Kirby told me that the speaker died right before the radio show was starting today. So I'm now just sitting in the East Club talking to myself into a microphone with people staring at me. Oddly, because I'm obviously, I'm projecting. I'm doing a radio show, except nobody knows that I'm doing a radio show, except everybody listening to us on FM radio today.
Which is great because that means whenever I talk to you, like right now, or when we have guests, nobody in that building is going to hear the guests, so it literally sounds like you're just speaking to silence.
That is correct. It's going to be, you're not going to hear Bud Dupree in the East Club. You're not going to hear Vandy quarterback Mike Wright because they're both on the show today. Jam-packed, loaded show. Titans on the practice field for the first time since Monday, getting ready for the New York Giants. That game will take place here, of course, at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. And as we get ready for that, by the way, Bud is going to be at 11:15, Mike Wright at 12:20, and you'll hear from Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill in the 11 o'clock hour as well. But as we get ready and we begin, for lack of a better term, what do they call? What does Ramon and Will and Schaefer call their Wednesdays? Scout meeting Wednesday or whatever it was.
I'm going to be honest. I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know the answer to this question?
It is like I think Scout Meeting Wednesday sounds familiar.
Scout Meeting Wednesday sounds familiar. All right, excellent. Well, let's steal their bit and let's do a little bit of a scout meeting of our own as Brad Willis, the man, the myth, the legend of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, graces us by the table today. So, as we look at the Giants and what's going to be available and what advantages the Tennessee Titans may or may not have, depending on how you look at this thing, although I saw them as 5.5-point home favorites. And the sharp money, Vegas, betting the Giants. But every NFL expert I have seen on any network that you would choose is picking the Titans to win on Sunday. That reeks of bad juju for Titans fans who are looking at these, those kind of things and being like, "Oh my God, we're the favorite. This inevitably means disaster." It feels like you're conditioned to think that way. But there are some things going on with New York outside of the obvious, the struggles that they have at quarterback. How uncertain, for lack of a better term, Saquon Barkley's health has been across the course of his career, although it seems like things are trending in a positive direction for him. We get the first injury report of the season for every team. Well, actually, I think the Bills and the Rams already have injury reports out, given that they play tomorrow. An NFL game will be played tomorrow. It'll be very exciting. But we'll get the first injury report of the season. We'll see who on the Titans is dealing with what in ways that they have not had to disclose during the course of training camp. And we'll see what the Giants' status is, because right now it sounds like two of their promising young pass rushers that they drafted to bring in, both Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau. I watched Brian Daboll's press conference yesterday. It feels like those two are a long shot. Now, he could be slow playing this thing, and it could all be, sleight of hand and competitive advantage and all this other nonsense, state secrets that coaches traffic in and until the game actually kicks off. But it does not seem likely that these two guys are going to participate for different reasons.
So not great for the Giants that they need to rely on two rookies in that critical area of the pass rush, and probably even worse if they do have to miss on Sunday.
And hugely beneficial to somebody like Nick Petit-Frere. And again, they have, like, Leonard Williams is still a player. Like, they're going to have guys up front that are going to get after you. And the problem with the Giants has not been their defense in the last couple of years, although I do have significant questions about their secondary right now. Adoree Jackson included at this stage of his career based on what we've seen of him on tape. But for the most part, I'm looking around at New York, and seeing a bit of a banged-up roster. One of their starting offensive linemen is dealing with a calf injury, John Feliciano. They have already 13, as we talked about yesterday, 13 projected new starters on, or I guess for lack of a better term, in all three phases, as an NFL coach would say, on offense, defense, and special teams. So, I mean, if you're feeling confident about Sunday, you're well within your rights to. But, of course, these kind of things always seem to spiral at the worst possible time, particularly with the randomness of a Week 1 opponent. So, for the Titans, kind of keeping tabs on things and some guys who have missed some time, some guys who have not had the opportunity to get practice work in significant ways during training camp, there are two that come to mind for me. Elijah Molden, who missed significant portion of training camp early on, who has been in and out in the last month or so, but most recently out and has missed several consecutive practices. He's your starting slot corner if everything is equal. Right now, he's not available. What his injury is, the best that I could identify it as is a left lower body injury, for lack of a better term, because that's all the detail that they've had to disclose. And I only know it's a left leg situation because I physically saw him hurt himself during the bubble practice in the open portion. So Elijah Molden, and what that kind of means for some pieces and parts that are now mixed and matched in the secondary. You have some stability. You have Amani Hooker, Kevin Byard, and Christian Fulton. Roger McCreary is somebody who it's clear and obvious that the coaching staff trusts a great deal, and I think Caleb Farley can afford to slow play it a little bit, although there will be he'll play on Sunday. How Ugo Amadi factors into this situation, how they kind of work three safety looks and nickel defenses and things like that, all of those things are going to be taken into account. And then beyond Molden, the status of Danico Autry, because it's not just Harold Landry that you are concerned about missing in this game. Danico Autry has been back at practice. We talked to him in the locker room on Monday. As I have mentioned before, he's a man of few words, so it's not like he was going into great detail either. But, I think it's reasonable to look at the fact that he did not, I think I saw him practice maybe twice throughout the entire course of training camp. And most recently Monday, I don't know how much work he did. I don't know where he is, and I don't know exactly what he's been rehabbing. But it's clear that something has been bothering one of the Titans' key pieces, and a four-man pass rush kind of looks a little more mortal, for lack of a better term, if there's any questions about Autry on top of the loss of Harold Landry. So these are all things that we will at least learn a little more about. Again, Mike Vrabel will speak to the media at 11 o'clock before practice takes place. We'll have Bud Dupree at 11:15, and we'll talk to him about the status of his teammates and kind of things that he expects to see on Sunday against the Giants. And as I mentioned, a lot of college football talk today as well. The Vols are back in the top 25, and Vanderbilt quarterback Mike Wright, who has been on an absolute tear, will join us at 12:20 today. But speaking of Tennessee, there has been significant movement in the AP Top 25 poll. We have made it past the preseason. We've made it through Week 0 and Week 1. So now where do the Tennessee Volunteers rank, and who else in the SEC is around them, and more importantly, ahead of them as they get ready to take on Pitt this weekend? Lucas says that we have NFL news. Is it worth the Laser Light Show or just small NFL news?
No, not quite. Buffalo Bills tight end Dawson Knox, a Brentwood, Tennessee native, has reportedly, according to Adam Schefter, reached agreement on a 4-year contract extension that will tie him into Buffalo through 2026. Don't have money on it, but Schefter says the deal is expected to place him in the top 5 highest paid tight ends in the league. He's going to sign the contract after practice today, according to Schefter. And then on top of that, 35-year-old free agent wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders announcing his retirement, and he will retire as a Denver Bronco.
Weren't you trying to bring him here? Wasn't that Yeah, weren't you an Emmanuel Sanders stan when we were going through lists of free agent wide receivers and things like that? I feel like you were somebody who was actively advocating for Emmanuel Sanders in ways that I thought were kind of silly.
This is a complete fabrication by you. I might have brought his name up once.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I don't believe you, but I'll take your word for it.
Fair enough.
615-737-1045, live at Nissan Stadium for the 14th annual Ascension St. Thomas Music City Battle of the Badges presented by the Tennessee Titans here today. The Metro Nashville Police Department, Nashville-Davidson County Sheriff's Office, and the Nashville Fire Department are teaming up with the Red Cross to save lives one blood donation at a time. The annual Battle of the Badges blood drive in the past has created friendly competition that takes place to see which badge can collect the most pints for patient care. Right now, if I'm looking at the leader, LITER, leaderboard, it looks like the Sheriff's Department is leading by a substantial margin. 177 to the Fire Department's 164 and 73 for Metro PD. So perhaps some more people will come and advocate on behalf of the police department to donate blood for a fantastic cause and a organization that consistently is out here doing good work, and that we're happy to be a part of the effort to bring awareness today. You can make an appointment to donate blood until 4 p.m. at redcrossblood.org and enter the code MusicCityBOB. When we come back, we'll talk about the situation for the Tennessee Vols, where they rank in the new top 25 poll, and how many other SEC teams got in the mix as well. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Welcome back. Live from Nissan Stadium. We're hanging out here today. Myself, Blaine and Mickey, or Blaine and Mickey and myself, as Allen Kirby groans in the background. I corrected myself, Kirby. Nobody can hear you off the microphone. Thank you for all of your good work, as always. Exceptional audio engineer. Yeah, we're here at the Battle of the Badges, an incredible competition between the Nashville Davidson County Sheriff's Office, the Nashville Fire Department, and Metro Nashville PD to raise, or rather generate interest and generate excitement and generate efforts to collect more blood donations for the Red Cross in their endeavors to make sure that their supplies are properly taken care of. And they always have needs. You can, by the way, make an appointment to donate blood until 4 p.m. today at redcrossblood.org and enter the code MusicCityBOB. So, Vols are in the new AP Top 25 poll. But that's not the thing that caught my attention most, based on what happened over the weekend and some of the results, and especially what's coming up this weekend in college football. I think probably most notably, if you look around at the top 25, Georgia went up to number 2 after the way that they absolutely demoralized Oregon. Ohio State dropped a spot, obviously, given that they kept it, I assume, close to Notre Dame, and Georgia looked so much overwhelmingly better. Obviously, Alabama is still number 1, and Clemson has dropped down now to 5. Michigan, in their Solomon's quarterback experiment, or whatever Jim Harbaugh is dubbing this, because they're going to start the other quarterback this week against Hawaii, right?
Yes.
Which is clearly just an indication of they don't care about these first 2 games. Nonsense.
It's going to be a bloodbath. Hawaii obviously got pummeled by Vandy week 1. They got destroyed by Western Kentucky in week 2, and now they got to go to the big house.
Yeah, it's a tough scene. But Michigan up 4 spots to number 4. Was that surprising to you? Michigan being that dramatically, or moving that far dramatically up? I was not, they handled an inferior opponent in their quarterback experimentation process, but it was not anything that indicated to me that they should move that far up.
Yeah, 51-7 win over Colorado State. I don't know if I buy into that, moving them 4 spots in the AP Top 25, but it is largely completely irrelevant. Like, if we're doing the AP Top 25 based on what we know about these teams this season, Georgia should be the number 1 team in the country. Based on the week 1 performance and the strength of schedule in week 1, Georgia had the most complete performance out of any SEC team against, maybe with Florida aside, but we're not talking about Florida as a potential number 1 team in the country. So if we're just looking at what has happened so far this season, Georgia should be the top-ranked team in the country, but that's not what we do. We do it based on preseason expectations.
That's how it goes. So outside of that, here's the thing. We talked about Florida's thrilling win over, at the time, number 7 Utah on Saturday night in the Swamp. Now, the Utes are still in the top 25. They come in at 13, but Florida has gone from unranked, unwanted, really not thought of in any substantial way until most recently, because you saw Kentucky struggle and you look around at the SEC East and be like, all right, bleep it. Let's jump them up. The Gators are number 12 after starting the season unranked. Make that make sense.
What a huge jump. That is an insane jump. That's what happens when you beat a top 10 playoff contender in week 1 when you had virtually no expectations.
No, is that it almost, because I don't want to cheapen Florida's win. It's obviously hugely impressive. They handled their business. I was not surprised to hear that they had been put into the top 25, because it's a substantial upset, and you look at what their offense is clearly capable of doing against quality opponents. Anthony Richardson, we talked about him at great length. I guess just after the way that last season ended, I had no expectations for Florida until they showed us something. And now, all of a sudden, they are one of the more well-thought-of teams to go from unranked to top 15 to top 12 overnight. It's pretty astounding to me. There's really not a lot of time, and we'll see maybe a course correction, because they do play Kentucky this week, which is of course notable. But I don't know how I feel about that. It almost cheapens the top 25 for me because the top 25 was already a cheap product to begin with.
Exactly. You don't have to cheapen Florida's win against Utah, but you can do that to week 2 in the AP Top 25.
Okay, good. I'm glad we can find consensus on that. So here is Tennessee. Let's talk about Florida quickly, though, before we move to where Tennessee is, because this was something Mike Golick Jr. touched on yesterday. He was on the call for Learfield Sports over the weekend, and I asked him, hey, Mike, we're watching this game through the worldview of Tennessee fans, and everybody's kind of peeing themselves a little bit because they're looking at Anthony Richardson and being like, oh, my God, this guy's coming to our house here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it is fascinating because you're right. I was down on the field before the game, and I was over in the corner of the end zone where they were doing quarterback center exchange, and I saw an awful lot of NFL hats of teams that may have a quarterback need in the upcoming draft. Everyone was really curious, and I heard Richard Johnson from Split Zone Duo talking about this with the Full Cast guys, how with Dan Mullen last year, Dan Mullen is such a great architect of offense and someone who does so much in play design and all these things that you can understand how maybe a guy like Anthony Richardson doesn't necessarily fit within that because so much of what he can do is about coloring outside of the lines a little bit. And I think the marriage with what Billy Napier does on offense, you go back to what he was at Louisiana, multiple tight ends on the field, get that stretch outside run game going, and then a quarterback there in Levi Lewis, who certainly had gifts and was a very good college quarterback, but now you hand that same potential with the quarterback run game, with an offensive line in Florida that brought back some good veterans in the middle, added a great transfer in Osiris Torrance from Louisiana, who was, a preseason All-American candidate. And it just was a really good marriage of skills that said, all right, we're going to lean on the run heavy. We're going to make you a part of that. And we saw he had over 100 yards in the game. And then off of that, it's going to open up these clear passing windows down the field. And if you can, in the beginning, sort of keep the equation like that, it's the quarterback-friendly offense we see all over the NFL for Florida, then, yeah, you give this guy who was a quality passer. I mean, those were good shots that he threw in there. It was a back and forth battle the whole day. Yeah, Tennessee and the rest of the East is on notice, and they've got Kentucky coming up this week, does Florida, which I think is going to be a good measuring stick game now in that division because they're all such different challenges, right? Kentucky probably looks the most like Florida, but then the Tennessee animal is just so different because of the tempo of that offense. And I think that's the one thing I have the hardest time accounting for is, all right, that Florida defense also held up against a ground and pound offense of Utah, made big plays at the end, and was obviously able to do that. And when you're playing a Josh Heupel offense that wants to go hurry up like that, it's really going to be about your ability to make one or two plays that give the team the ball back, that slow down that offense and force them to not have favorable down and distances that they can work with. But it's going to be a fascinating chess match amongst those two.
So that's Mike Golick Jr. yesterday on the radio show, and you can check that podcast of the full interview with Gojo out wherever you get your podcasts. Just search The Buck Rising Show in your favorite podcast app. But Golick talking about Anthony Richardson there and the Florida offense and what that kind of means, and the opponent, as we mentioned, they do play Kentucky. Is that game in Lexington, Lucas?
I believe that game's in Gainesville, but I'll double check.
Okay, back-to-back home games with the opportunity to upset potentially two top 25 opponents in back-to-back weeks. That would make the Associated Press poll lean very, very favorably for Florida, obviously. I think they probably stay in the top 25 even if they do lose to Kentucky, given that they are also a top 25 team.
5.5-point favorites, Florida. They are in the swamp.
Florida's 5.5-point favorites, really?
Oh, yeah. The number 12 team in the country, Buck.
That's interesting. Well, like Vegas makes me rethink how much people might be overinflating Florida just based off one result, because that's always the thing that I default to. Vegas always seems to know, even as I have like I'm skeptical of the Titans as a 5.5-point favorite at home this weekend. But obviously this is something that, the sharp money is going to be on New York with a line that size, but Vegas always seems to know when you look at these things. Now, for Tennessee coming in for the first time in week 2, or heading into week 2, at 24, jumping up from the ranks of the unranked, for lack of a better term, after their 59-10 win over Ball State. Now, they have had they will have an opportunity to take on a Pittsburgh team that is going to give them obviously more problems than what Ball State was able to do. And if he gets his second win as Tennessee's coach, if Josh Heupel gets his second win as Tennessee's coach over a nationally ranked team, that will already be a big difference, because do you remember his record against ranked teams last year, Lucas?
Not off the top of my head, actually.
1-4 was Josh Heupel against the AP Top 25.
With the one win against Kentucky.
That is correct. They won every game that they were favored in. It's important to note. And they were favored against Kentucky at the time. But it's still a quality opponent, and you were able to handle business as you so often do against the Tackle Cats. But looking at the way that Hendon Hooker came off the bench against Pitt a year ago in the second quarter, he ends up being Tennessee's starter for the rest of the season. A win over Pitt would be such a monumental step for the Vols, especially given that 3 of their next 4 games are SEC teams, Florida, at LSU, and then hosting Alabama. That's not an ideal situation if you were to let a game like Pitt get by you. It's difficult to do must win in week 2, but my God, if a game ever felt that way, it does right now with Tennessee and Pittsburgh.
I'm still putting more importance in that Florida game in Neyland Stadium. I think that will derail things as far as the outlook on Josh Heupel in Tennessee more than a loss to Pitt on the road would.
Well, I think the Florida stuff is as much about, obviously, because it's an SEC East opponent, and that, your trajectory is trying to be the second-best team in the East, with a ceiling of the second-best team in the East this year. That would cause significant damage, but also it's a psychological thing when it comes to Florida.
Absolutely.
I don't know, the rosters turn over every year, and this is still a fairly new coaching staff, so you don't have a lot of the baggage that's coming in, but that will change the tone around the rest of the Tennessee season if Florida does not, if they lose to Florida at home. It will cause a, I don't want to be dramatic or hyperbolic just yet, but that has the potential to cause a significantly cataclysmic event for the rest of their year, in the same way that Florida, after the Alabama game, really kind of spiraled. They lost their mojo. It's not like the team is that much different under Billy Napier as it was Dan Mullen. This is still largely what Florida looked like a year ago by most estimations. Everybody has attrition, and the transfer portal does what it does. But still, I look at Tennessee, Florida for UT this year as what Alabama did to Florida and the tailspin that it kind of caused.
Yeah, Florida's not going to go 10-2 this year. There's going to be bumps and bruises in year 1 of Billy Napier,
sure,
even though that was an incredibly impressive week 1 win. For me, the most impressive thing about that win wasn't even Anthony Richardson. I'm not totally shocked that Anthony Richardson showed us he's capable of almost single-handedly winning games for Florida. What I was kind of shocked by was how the Gators handled Utah up front. That was the biggest thing for me, the way they were able to control the line of scrimmage for the most part, which is an advantage I thought Utah would have clearly going into that game. So that's more of a concern if you're a Tennessee fan looking at the potential Florida has in 2022. We knew Anthony Richardson was extremely talented. The question was, could he overcome those deficiencies? But I think those deficiencies might not be as serious as we thought they were, at least in the trenches.
I will, just to play devil's advocate, and you can jump in on the conversation if you want, 615-737-1045. To play devil's advocate, I'm looking at what happened in Utah, and I'm taking into account the fact that you traveled across the country, that to play in Gainesville in September, what was the temperature in that stadium and the humidity? Because this is like playing Miami in the first game of the year when the Titans did it a couple of years ago. There is such a tangible effect on the opponent when you come into South Florida that way, or Florida in general right now, especially with the way that everything is just generally hotter than it used to be, heating up by the day, it would seem. If you're paying attention to what's going on around the world right now, you are looking at going into a place like the swamp, literally the swamp, it feeling like you are suffocating. And if you're an offensive line or a defensive line and you're getting handled when these guys have been conditioning in that for months and months on end, I'm almost going to grade on a curve in a way that I don't think that travels in a way that you saw it have a legitimate effect on Utah's front on both sides. Because I really think that was not. I mean, it was discussed a little bit on the broadcast as far as I heard, but in the analysis after the fact, I really think people just discounted the environment that you're playing in. Miami is a hellscape to play in when you open this. There is a tangible. The Dolphins are wretched across 20 years, but they have a clear and obvious advantage in September games because of or September games at home because of the environment that they are welcoming opponents into. I think the Patriots are down there. The Patriots are down there for like 5 days because Bill Belichick is very, very cognizant of that as somebody who has had difficult games against the Dolphins the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think any Utah player on that roster has ever been in an environment like that. Like,
no, I don't think so.
Don't give me Rose Bowl against Ohio State, at Oregon and Autzen Stadium. Like, no, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare to a week 1 juiced up swamp in the September heat. I agree.
615-737-1045. You need to jump in now because you know what's coming up next since we're back to a regularly scheduled or a regular work week for the Tennessee Titans. They're on the practice field. You'll hear from Mike Vrabel at 11. You'll hear from Bud Dupree, who will join the show at 11:15. So that means that the dumbest thing in sports this week is coming up next. Welcome back, live from Nissan Stadium, where we're hanging out today for the 14th annual Battle of the Badges on behalf of the Red Cross. Seems like the leaderboard picking up a little steam for Metro Nashville Police Department, or at least looks like they've got it segmented out by hour. 235 leaders for the Sheriff's Department, 228 for the Fire Department, and 125 for Metro Nashville PD. Remember that you can come out and schedule an appointment to donate up until 4 p.m. today for the 14th annual Battle of the Badges situation out here. So, since we have Mike Vrabel at the podium in about 15 minutes, and since Bud Dupree is going to follow after that, and since Ryan Tannehill is also going to speak to the media, it's game week. We're going to do the dumbest thing in sports this week a little early. Fire it off.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say,
What the is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot. You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Rising Show.
Sure is. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in and tell us, real simple, what the dumbest thing in sports this week is to you. 615-737-1045. All right, I'm going to start the proceedings here with a graphic that I have been sent many times over this morning from the NFL Network. So Mike Herndon and I were having a discussion about this, Mike Miracles, and it was funny because they're doing Super Bowl predictions. Obviously, week one, everybody's got to get who's going to win their divisions, who's going to go to the Super Bowl, who do you have in the final game, who do you have representing the AFC and the NFC, blah, 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 blah. And it was funny because I was actually having a conversation with one of our great partners on the radio show, Jeremy Forsyth of Forsyth and Hilario, because he had texted me, Lucas, I think yesterday, and said, are you guys going to go game by game and do your game predictions? And it took every ounce of restraint I had to not say, oh, buddy, you don't know what kind of show you signed up for, did you?
All right, so go ahead, Buck. Week one.
No, that's not how we're going to do things. I would rather jump from the fourth floor of Nissan Stadium here than go game by game with record predictions and things of this nature. But the NFL Network was having their experts make predictions on the Super Bowl and who will be in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl picks. So they've got Rich Eisen, Steve Mariucci, Kurt Warner, Mike Irvin, Cynthia Freeland, and Rachel Bonetta, whose work I am unfamiliar with, but she's up there with the big dogs. So
she does a ton of stuff with the NFL Network.
Oh, does she?
A lot of digital stuff, too.
Okay. Well, then that's on me then. So every one of these 6 individuals that they have asked and put out their Super Bowl picks for the 2022 season, or what will culminate the 2022 season, every one of the 6 panelists picked the Buffalo Bills to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Now, some have the Bucks, some have the Niners, 2 for the Rams, a Cowboys, Michael Irvin being a blatant homer, and Cynthia Freeland going with the Packers to face the Bills in the Super Bowl. It is nonsense. It is the dumbest thing in sports this week that anybody would look at this and think that the Bills are clearly and obviously consensus Super Bowl favorites in especially the AFC. The AFC is a bloodbath right now. No pun intended, because we're at this blood drive. It is wild what is happening in the AFC with the amount of talent that they have amassed, the coaching turnover, and everybody looking around and being like, yeah, it's clearly the Bills. Well, the Bills are credible. Certainly, the Bills have done a great deal of winning. The Bills have an incredibly talented roster to their credit, but the Bills have also had some turnover. The Bills also have some uncertainty. We have no idea what the health is going to look like, so you cannot factor that in before the season begins. But to look at that and see all 6 people, all 6 panelists picking the Bills straight up, I'm not advocating for the Titans. I'm not advocating for anybody else. I just think it's nonsense that all 6 people would basically go chalk on the AFC side of things when that's the far more uncertain side of the NFL this year.
I mean, what other team in the AFC do you look at and feel good about their potential to win the AFC? Like, it's preseason predictions. Like, we can put that blanket statement out there. We have no idea what's going to happen. Injuries, we have no clue what kind of factor that's going to play. But preseason predictions are what they are, and these networks are going to do them. So what's one team that you look at in the AFC other than Buffalo and you say, yeah, I'm pretty confident that this team has what they need to get to the Super Bowl?
Buddy, if you ask me, and maybe we do this on Friday, since Fridays, or maybe Thursday, since that's before the Bills game. Let's do this tomorrow. I can make the case for 8 or 9 AFC teams to win the Super Bowl. The Bengals were in the damn Super Bowl last year. I could make the case easily for the Colts to be in the Super Bowl this year. There are plenty of teams in the AFC that I would say that you would look around, and if you did your research on everything but the Vegas betting odds, that you would say, okay, there are a lot of teams that make sense to go on the kind of run that the Cincinnati Bengals did last year. It is unthinkable to me that everybody would go chalk in that moment when you have so many great options to pick from and you just go with the easiest thing. Now, I'm not discounting anybody in this panel's NFL knowledge, certainly not Cynthia Freeland, who I know takes a more studious approach to this than the vast majority of people in NFL media. But still, the Bills as chalk is silly to me. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Let's go to Chuck in West Nashville with the dumbest thing in sports this week.
Yeah, mine also was the Florida-Utah game. I was watching the ESPN tracker before the game was played, and it had Utah as a favorite, and they're ranked 7th and one of the dark horses to make the playoffs. And yet when it got to the percentage of the game to win the game, it had Florida with a 52% percentage to win the game over a unranked team over the number 7th in America. I found that hard to believe.
Do you remember which metric you were looking at, Chuck? Like, was this something in-game? Was this something pre-game?
This was pregame. Okay. Yes, this was pregame. Before this was in the morning, and it had 52% for Florida to win the game over Utah, who was 7th ranked and the favorite. So I thought that was, how can that be? That was, to me, that was completely the dumbest thing I'd seen.
I agree with that assessment. 615-737-1045. It's just, just general preseason things. Like when Jeremy texted me that yesterday, and I don't want to be dismissive because I know record predictions are fun for people. And like preseason polls have a place and they give us something to talk about. We certainly traffic in it during the summer. That's all you have to talk about is how you're going to project onto the next season as we try to get you from one football season to the next, really. And nothing in preseason matters. It's why I hate them, because I want what I say to matter. I feel like most people, when they're talking about sports and when they're arguing about sports with their friends, family, and loved ones, you want your opinion. You want to be right. So what better way is there to be wrong than to traffic in last year's results and try to project them onto the next season with any kind of definitiveness? That's why this stuff drives me crazy.
I mean, I agree it's fruitless, but I also think it's just not that deep. Like, it's just sports. It's just conversations. Like, we got to talk about something before the season. Like, I just let people talk about whatever they want to talk about. The games will start, and then the conversations will change.
I've just told you I don't have a problem with everybody else doing it, but if you're asking me to do it, like I said, I'd rather throw myself off the fourth floor of Nissan today. No, thank you.
Well, we'll see how long it takes for Brian Kelly to want to throw himself off the top row at Death Valley. But after a loss in Week 1 against Florida State, he collected with the LSU Media Corps, I guess on Monday. Maybe this was yesterday. But you're not going to hear the audio from the LSU reporter very well in this. But Brian Kelly, and we'll play the audio here, kind of, going at her for coming in a little bit late. And then she says, well, maybe if you win, I'll be on time. Here's the audio.
We'll open it up to this late arriving media crowd that must have enjoyed the weekend. That's usually $10 that we put in the kitty. We'll have a big bash at the end of the year at my place. I don't think it has anything to do with winning. I think it has to do with being on time.
I don't know who my dumbest thing in sports is here. I just know it's involving this general topic. It is unprofessional, I think, for the LSU reporter to show up late to the press conference and then to say, well, maybe if you win, I'll be on time. But Brian Kelly, get the hell out of here. I feel like I can count on one hand the amount of college football press conferences that start on the dot on time. I mean, Brian Kelly up there in his suit like he's running for presidency, just from the clouds chiding at an LSU reporter. I don't know. I did not like the way he responded to it. I do not side with the LSU reporter. I thought it was a bit unprofessional, but Brian Kelly, get the hell out of here. Just do your press conference.
No, see, this is nonsense. As somebody who is in these press conferences and often has exchanges with the coach that they cover this way, like you think you're walking unscathed out of a Mike Vrabel press conference on any given day, much less after a loss? Are you kidding me? You're out of your mind. I don't like the idea that this has been completely taken out of context and run wild with on the internet, and now Brian Kelly is being made a laughing stock and an unlikable figure because he comes off as pompous because he's Brian Kelly and he already looks a little pompous.
Yeah, he just is.
But that's my thing. Like, it so limits the normal amount of human interactions that we as people who cover these teams and these coaches specifically can just have normal conversation, like normal back and forth with the people that we cover. Like it deters people from being able to interact because you're always on camera. You're always, somebody's always got a phone on you, or there's always somebody's monitoring something to put it out on the internet to drag you across the surface of the digital sun. A little bit of NFL news before we go to Mike Vrabel's press conference. What you got for me, Lucas?
Multiple reports. I'll go with Adam Schefter here that Jets head coach Robert Saleh said it's likely the earliest that quarterback Zach Wilson will be available is week 4 at Pittsburgh. It is Joe Flacco time in New York starting week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens.
A full month of Joe Flacco in the year 2022, a full month of Joe Flacco to start your Jets season. God, they are just unrelentingly miserable as a fan base. Mike Vrabel is going to speak with the media. It's game week ahead of the New York Giants, and we'll carry that press conference for you live from St. Thomas Sports Park coming up next.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Titans are on the practice field today in preparation for Sunday's Week 1 kickoff against the Giants in Nissan Stadium. Head coach Mike Vrabel speaking to the media now. You can hear it live in just a few moments on the Buck Rising Show. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 on this Wednesday, live from Nissan Stadium for the 14th annual Battle of the Badges blood drive that we're broadcasting live. Blaine, Mickey, and myself will be out here through my show and their show as well. Happy to have you alongside. Mike Vrabel's at the podium previewing Week 1 against the Giants. Let's go live to St. Thomas Sports Park right now.
Roles. Do you, as a staff, do you kind of let them know that the intensity is going to ramp up for their first regular season NFL game, or do you leave that to the players to kind of police that?
Well, I think that that's just all part of the process of trying to get guys ready for, I think the opening weekend is trying to give them everything we can out in practice, trying to practice how we want to play, showing them a lot of looks. And I think, that's our job as coaches to explain to them that, things are going to come up that they haven't seen, and they're going to have to work through it. That's all part of, our process.
With so much newness from the Giants, how much goes into just like that filling out period initially in the game? Like, is that something that goes first quarter, first 2 quarters?
You just have to see how the flow of the game goes. I think that's, we really don't want to feel anything. We want to go out and be aggressive and move the football and convert opportunities, especially in the red zone. It's going to be difficult, but same thing on defense. I mean, we want to try to disrupt the football. We want to try to make plays on the football and force them into, hopefully mistakes. That's what you want to try to do in every football game, and then be sound, for things that may come up that you haven't seen. But I don't think we're going to go out and play cautious by any means.
Mike, you've been complimentary of the camp Ryan has had to this point. What have you liked about what you've seen out of him?
I think he's been accurate. I think he's been decisive. I think he's had command of what we're trying to do. I think his leadership has been really good.
Mike, is that a change from the past in any way? Has he amped up anything?
Well, we're just focused on this year, Gentry, and how we did this camp and what we're going to do today and what we're going to do this season.
Mike, Ola is a first-time captain for you guys on special teams. Just maybe how have you kind of seen him establish himself as a voice on that unit in the time he's been here?
Yeah, I think he brings a physical presence, and Ola and I feel like have a great relationship since coming here. I think it's only gotten better. He carved out a role for himself on defense and really helped us at times last year. I would anticipate that continuing to happen, but not losing sight of what really his bread and butter is, and that was special teams and being a physical presence who puts a lot into it. You see him talking to younger guys. You see him taking a leadership role, which is really good.
In the search for big plays from the passing game, how much of that is about guys playing better? How much of it is about scheme?
Yeah, you can go and check, PFF, which, I've done in the past, and it's about 70% guys making plays and about 30%, damn, that's a really good design. So I did that one time, and I'm not going to waste my time on it anymore. We're going to try to, have some good plays, and we're going to have to try to have an opportunity to go make some plays down the field or break some tackles, whatever it may be. So, because I was curious, what that number was, and so I watched a lot of them and said, from my eye, hey, that's a, schemed up play. A guy's running free. Didn't look like there was anything wrong with the defense. It just was kind of a well-designed play. And then there's a lot of times where guys go up and make plays.
How crucial do you consider it that you guys do significantly better in that department?
I think it's crucial that we score points and win and take care of the football.
Coach, when you look at a guy like Saquon, he's come, I think, 2 years off of that injury. I mean, how do you stop a guy like that? And you know that that's kind of a bread and butter piece for them.
Everybody has to be at the point of attack, and by that mean he can, take it inside, bounce it, jump cut. If there's a crease there, he's going to take it. You just have to build a wall. When we played against him, it was a couple years ago, but our good plays were ones where we had the edge set and there was not a whole lot of space inside, and trying to avoid those opportunities where there's just one guy making a tackle on him, because those are difficult.
When it comes to this weekend, I know that first game sometimes missed tackles that can occur. How much do you guys emphasize that in practice this week?
Well, that'll be one of the keys of the game. Defensively, that's something that we'll practice. You put pads on and looking for all those opportunities again, just to explain to them that we won't have as many reps as we will in the game today or tomorrow. But we have to start practicing and continue to practice like we want to play the game. Understand the keys, understand the game plan, try to show them as many different looks as we can.
What are some of those other keys besides what you just mentioned?
Well, when you look at special teams, week one we really focusing on the operation, the execution. Penalties. Penalties can be so critical on special teams. It's the difference in 20 yards, on a punt return. And that's been a strength for us. We have to try to continue to make that a strength and do it without fouling. Offensively, I think, we have to anticipate, we have to beat man coverage. And that's something that we'll have to do. So, Tron, I appreciate you cutting me off. Go ahead.
Well, you have a defense, like a coordinator like Martindale, that you never know who's blitzing. They always overload. Like, how much stress does that put on your protection rules and just having to have those?
It's a long protection meeting. It's you can't basically cover everything. You're not sure which package you're going to get each and every week. They, a lot of credit to the players that they have. The scheme is very good, but being able to bring guys and essentially run the same pressure, but just from different guys doing it and different guys dropping into those zones or the man that they have. So they've done a great job of it, and it's certainly going to be something that we'll have to be prepared for on Sunday.
And then having a rookie right tackle, how do you balance, okay, I need to help him out, I don't need to help him out? How do you balance that equation?
Well, we'll see how the game goes, and there'll be protections where we'll slide to the right. There'll be protections where we slide to the left, and we'll see. We'll have to see how the game's going.
From what you've seen so far, how would you kind of describe mood, attitude, energy this first week? Maybe different from what you saw in training camp and preseason.
Well, I think Monday was probably a little bit better than training camp, and I would say today was much better. I think we all realize it's a Wednesday of the regular season in week one, and just trying to look to string some days together, focus on today, continue to build momentum as the week goes on.
It's Titans head coach Mike Vrabel meeting with the media ahead of week one against the New York Giants. Coming up next, though, we'll talk to Bud Dupree before he heads out onto the practice field. We'll hear from Bud about what he's expecting to see against this New York Giants offense and how his preparation has gone in the absence of teammate Harold Landry, who, of course, was lost for the season with a torn ACL. That's coming up next, live from the Battle of the Badges here at Nissan Stadium. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Until 1 o'clock. Titans outside linebacker Bud Dupree is going to hop on the phone here in just a second before he heads out for his workday on the practice field. We'll talk to Bud about a great many things, including this Week 1 matchup. Now, you heard from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel there, and Lucas, his press conference still going, or is Tannehill waiting in the wings at this point?
Ryan Tannehill is speaking with the media.
Okay, you'll hear from Ryan Tannehill later on in the show after we catch up with Bud Dupree. Now, I think when you listen to Mike Vrabel, there's a couple of different things I want you to pay attention to, and we'll circle it back to it probably with Coach Mack on Friday and kind of get into the X's and O's of the game itself. The protection plan is something that I appreciate Teron Davenport asking the question for me. I sent him a text in our group chat, our Titans media group chat, to make sure that was something that was posed of Mike Vrabel, because this is a hugely aggressive defensive scheme with Wink Martindale coming over from the Baltimore Ravens. This is a scheme that often sends additional men in pressure to try and disrupt the quarterback. They do it in creative ways. They do it frequently. They're north of, I think they're just under 45% with the amount. It's at least historically under Wink Martindale, the amount of time that defensive personnel sends a fifth or an extra rusher as opposed to just getting pressure with 4, which is something that the Titans were particularly adept at, only needing 4 men to get pressure and then allowing yourself to have the numbers advantage in coverage on third down in particular. So I thought Mike's answer there was an informative one about the protection meeting, being a little longer than it might normally be in any given week. And it's not insignificant because, as we well know, protection for Ryan Tannehill is a significant question right now. It remains a significant question until we see how much different this unit is, if it's different at all. Taylor Lewan, how much more close or how much closer to the player that we know Taylor to have been at the start of his career, how much closer can Taylor be to that guy versus the player that was clearly struggling last year and required additional help? How much can Nick Petit-Frere, how much are they going to feel the need to protect him in protection? Because it's not just about, all right, you get this guy, I get that guy. Let's work on our pass sets. There's all kind of different nuances that go into offensive line play. And honestly, protection plans is something that I think that Todd Downing and his staff have done quite well with. A great example of that from a player who many of you continued to cite as being great evidence that he was coming along in his progression as a pro prospect, the San Francisco 49ers game. And Dylan Radins, who was a second-round pick, now can't scratch the lineup, can't even play the position that they were trying to work him at primarily, now working primarily at guard on the inside. Dylan Radins was the starting left tackle against the San Francisco 49ers. They obviously, in San Francisco, have a tremendous defensive front. They will again this year. But when you look at the ways that they helped Dylan Radins in protection, this was a situation that you look at and you say, okay, you have to go out of your way to do the exact same thing for Nick Petit-Frere or something similar to help keep that quarterback upright. Now, in a perfect world, you wouldn't be playing as many third and longs as the Titans did last year, and obviously that's an area where they will work to improve. But those are the kind of questions that I think are worth asking now and worth paying attention to once we get into the actual game and as you start to wear in and see how, the Giants' game plan has run up against the Titans' game plan, because you're not really game planning for tendencies. You're not really game planning for scheme, because it's new schemes and a fair amount of different personnel for New York coming into this one on Sunday. Bud Dupree, Titans outside linebacker, kind enough to hop on the show with us before he heads out onto the practice field. Bud, how we living, brother?
Man, I'm good. How you?
Man, I'm good. I'm just hanging out here at this blood drive, getting ready for week 1. You excited to play a home game? Feel like the real thing?
Okay. Most definitely, man. Season back in stock. All the guys are excited. I'm excited. It's a fun time to be back being a Titan.
Well, with that, Bud, man, it seems like there's so much, and you're a recent addition to what this franchise has been, but the energy around a home opener has not quite felt this way in some time. Last year was obviously there was a season with a lot of expectations. You guys come in a similar circumstance with your own standards to uphold. But the amount of juice around this particular game, it's palpable to us. I wonder if you guys have noticed it in the locker room.
Man, definitely. It just comes with the work everybody put in last year. Guys feeling like we have a chance to just continue to build and build and build and make sure we're making the right strides to be where we want to be. And everyone knows at the end of the day, man, nothing matters in the NFL league unless you go to the Super Bowl. So that's just a no-brainer for everyone. So to continue to build and put those steps forward, that's all a part of the football game itself.
I know a lot of the conversation and in meeting with you guys on Monday in the locker room when we had the opportunity to do so, I know a lot of the questions revolved around the loss of Harold, and of course that's important for the person as much as it is the teammate and the impact on the field. You want to make sure that Harold is doing well and handling those kind of things in stride, obviously having gone through something similar yourself last year. But this defensive front still has tremendous expectations for the group with or without Harold Landry, even though, the presence of Harold would probably make it a lot easier to uphold.
Man, yeah, definitely, man. How I look at it, man, you can't go around trying to replace players. Each player has their own individual traits. Each player brings something different to the game that other player really just can't replace. And Harold's a great player. He's coming off a big year. I know he's more depressed that he's come off a big year and wanting to follow up with another big year.
Sure.
Than actually getting hurt. Same situation with me, man. Having the ACL kind of tear you down in the season when you work hard this off season to try to come back in, it can be a major blow mentally and physically. But a guy like Harold can get over it real fast, we have to step up as a unit. We will step up as a unit, just to go out there and make those extra plays that we know will be lacking his presence.
Titans outside linebacker Bud Dupree is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. Titans getting ready to take the practice field in the game on Sunday against the Giants at 3:25 here at Nissan Stadium. Bud, when I talk to people at practice and when I've watched you out there working in teamwork, I've spent a lot of time with some offensive linemen who have had to go up against you. And my guy, it sounds like you're giving them all kinds of hell out on the practice field.
Man, definitely, man. It is a part of the game. You have to go out there and prepare like it's a game. Bring your traits to the facility, to the team that you're best at. I take pride in being explosive, being fast, flying around. So, a lot of guys, man, really didn't get to see that last year because of the injury, different nagging injuries. So this year I got to make sure I put it on display and bring my best foot forward for this team.
But, it really felt, Bud, and I think everybody's understanding because Lawan was going through a similar circumstance. There's plenty of ACL tears across the league every year, and there's just kind of a different kind of curve that guys returning from those injuries are graded on, at least in the short term when you're trying to get back out on the field and kind of get a better feel for where your body's at. But the way that you finished last year, I think, gave everybody kind of a lot of excitement and a lot of hope about what you would be able to do and how this defense might further maximize what you're already so adept at.
Yeah, definitely, man. Just feeling that stride coming into my own then. But, I had all season in the camp. It's a major part of being able to be on the field with these guys during camp, mini camp as well, to get a feel for how everyone plays and how everyone get a chance to see how I really play in the long term. Going to the game and just running the scheme is one thing, but when you're able to be at camp, see the different personalities of a player, see the different traits, and actually be able to say, okay, cool, so now we know Bud can do this and do this, and we'll actually be able to put these situations involved. That makes a big difference. Practice helped us a lot, make sure that me, for myself, is best foot forward.
Well, speaking for you guys as a unit, and Titans outside linebacker Bud Dupree here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Ola is somebody who gave you guys great snaps last year when there were injuries, has obviously done so in the preseason, and will have the opportunity to do so again this year. Was going to anyway, given the opportunities that he had earned. But he's a captain this year, Bud. That's got to get you hyped for your guy.
Mm-hmm. Man, most definitely, man. I'm excited for him, man. He puts in the hard work day in and day out. He takes pride in that special teams role that he has, and now he gets a chance, to come out, and actually get a lot of starter roles since for the devastating loss of Harold. But he gets an older opportunity to step in and step up, and create another role for himself, obviously on defense, man. And it's kind of a bittersweet for him, going through his career, being a backup in Pittsburgh,
Sure.
and being TJ, then coming here, being a backup to me and Harold. For him actually to be in it, man, it's a great opportunity for him. I'm excited for him to the tremendous T.
I was listening to your guy Ramon. He's got the show on before our show, obviously, and he was Ramon Foster talking about he saw Ola kind of come up as a young dude in Pittsburgh, and kind of glad to see that Ramon's influence did not lead Ola astray. Just how far has he come though, Bud, as a player? Because, fortunately he did survive the influence of Ramon Foster, but it seems like Ola really last year it took a definitive step even from what he was with the Steelers during your guys' time together.
Man, definitely. I think that just comes with more times and more reps for him, man. He's obviously a great pass rusher, that's what keeps him around, keeps him on the team, because even as his small size and small stature, he still can get to the quarterback. Still a very physical player. For seeing him work, ask questions, continue to look at film. We do stuff together, man. It kind of pick each other's brains on certain stuff. He brings a little bit of quick movement to the game that other people are really not used to seeing from a smaller guy on the end. So it's a big opportunity for him, man. I think he's going to use his best attributes best for himself.
Looking at the opponent this week, Bud, and then we'll get you out of here. And I appreciate you spending some time before practice. We talked to Byard on Monday, and basically his line was, it's not Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, but what they do offensively has the potential to have some similarities. This is a quarterback who has displayed the ability to move. He's going to run. He's going to make plays with his legs, and obviously Saquon Barkley seems to be rounding back into form after dealing with injuries. What are kind of the team keys this week when it comes to the run defense against two players who are going to try and take advantage of some opportunities there?
Yeah, definitely, man. We got to stop the run on that aspect of it. Daniel. Let's start with Saquon. Saquon is not a fluke. Saquon is an animal at his stake. So anytime you let a lion out of the cage, you got to be prepared for anything he's gonna do. So we got to make sure we're containing him. He's a great player. Make sure we get a hats on him at all times, not running away from contact. We got to go meet him, bring it to him. And also, Daniel Jones, he's a very athletic player. Kind of don't really get a lot of recognition for it. So if you're sitting back thinking that it's sweet with him, or he may not run you over, you're gonna get ran over. So we got to put it in his face each and every time to let him know that we're here as well, because he's gonna bring it. He has something to prove right now, and both of those guys have something to prove right now, man. So we got to go out and continue to make sure that we're not the people they prove it on. So that's part of it.
He's Bud Dupree, Titans outside linebacker. He's going to play the season opener, as will the rest of the team, against the New York Giants this Sunday, 3:25 kickoff here at Nissan Stadium, where we're broadcasting live today. Bud, thank you as always. I appreciate the time. Continued health and success this season, buddy.
Man, thank you. Y'all be safe, be blessed.
That's Bud Dupree with us on 104.5 The Zone before the Titans head out on the practice field for their first day of on-field work. Well, I guess they got a little work in on Monday, but Players' Day off always being Tuesday. It just feels like the normal work week. Lucas, do you look at your work week differently when football season starts? Because it completely, like Tuesday's our weekend now, even though, we're obviously still working as a part of the radio show and all the other things that we do for a living.
Yeah, it's a weekend when you can, kind of be done with stuff by 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it feels like, a nice little day off.
I know. I had a meeting yesterday after we I had 2 meetings after the radio show yesterday, and both as I was leaving, they asked me, what do you have going the rest of the day? I'm like, oh no, man, this is my weekend. This is my Saturday. What we're doing today as I leave meetings through the rest of the afternoon. But it's a good time because we're back in action for another football season and excited to be able to cover it. I'm really curious to see what this ends up looking like, because listening to Bud talk about team keys and what the Giants are going to have, what the known commodities are as you scout personnel and things of this nature, as I try and get the best pregame analysis grip on this matchup as humanly possible without a real sample size to do so and without doing the laziness of score predictions or record predictions and things of that nature. I really think their best advantage on Sunday lies with the pass defense against Daniel Jones. He's not a player who lacks talent. I mean, wasn't he 6th overall in that 2019 draft that AJ and Jeff and all them went?
In Nashville, yes.
God, that is, and it's, it's almost like Corey Davis. It's not Daniel Jones' fault that he was drafted 6th overall, but there are certain expectations when you're a top 10 pick, especially at that position. Now, the Giants, I mean, they have famously, much like the Jets, both New York teams seem to be wildly inept at making personnel decisions in the last couple of years, both when it comes to coaches and players. But when you look at the New York Giants and the amount of bad decisions that they have made leading up to this course correction that they're trying to get on, and one that I think is going to ultimately end up being successful, whether Daniel Jones is the quarterback of that or not. But Dave Gettleman and the harm that he has done to the new Dave Football Gettleman, right? The guy who said he wouldn't, everybody's calling him for trade offers with Odell Beckham Jr., and he's getting offered a cup of coffee and a bag of donuts in that thick New York accent where he's giving a press conference, and then sure enough, like 2 weeks later, ends up trading Odell for what basically amounts in the NFL for a bag of donuts and a cup of coffee. Dave Gettleman and the roster construction that he put together on his way out the door, it's just not put them in a position to succeed right now in a critical year for Daniel Jones. So who does that work directly to the advantage of? Well, the opposing defense on any given weekend. This one happens to be the Titans, who are one of the better defensive units collectively in the league. Now, how much that gets impacted by the loss of Harold, obviously that's a big one. We spent a lot of time talking about that. You've heard analysis from Greg Cosell on what the schematic impact of that is. But beyond that, there are still a coaching staff and a personnel group that you feel largely good about when you're facing a quarterback who is prone to bad decision-making and has developed bad habits over the course of his short career, as Daniel Jones has. I look at him, and I see him make plays when I least expect it, but they're so few or far between. It's almost kind of like watching Marcus Mariota again. Like there are excuses for why Marcus Mariota wasn't a good quarterback. But at the end of the day, he's just not a good enough quarterback, and you have to move on. Like I almost look at Daniel Jones through that same lens. There are plenty of things that have gone wrong around Daniel Jones that are, of course, not his fault. But he still has not produced in a tangible way. He still has not overcome the bad situation that he's been put in just by nature of how the NFL's parity system works. High drafted quarterbacks are overall going to go to poor organizations, to bad teams. And that's exactly what the Giants have been around Daniel Jones in the meantime. And it's something that the Titans certainly should be able to capitalize on.
I mean, there was chatter in the preseason about Tyrod Taylor should start for the New York Giants. Like, it was a conversation. I don't know that it was ever going to happen, but there were articles written about it. There were conversations had about it on radio stations about should Tyrod Taylor start in 2022 for the Giants.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what the Texans were doing last year. If you don't have a plan, or if you can't have a feasible plan moving forward with the guy that you got, we'll bring in the stopgap. That's the Jacoby Brissett experience. It's the Tyrod Taylor experience. Any of these guys who have been floating around the league for long enough, and that teams know they can get a few decent starts out of, that you can trust them to be able to operate and function as passable is a tough word, but just play the quarterback position to a point that it's not going to put you in harm's way, which is exactly what Tyrod did last year with the Texans against the Titans, and they ended up winning because they had a game plan to make it work around Tyrod. Now, Brian Daboll and his offensive coaching staff, I trust vastly more than Joe Judge. I think I'm unfair to Joe Judge just because I look at the Patriots coaching tree and all the mishaps that have happened off that. I grade him through that prism. And also clearly Joe Judge in his hiring practices, bringing in offensive line coaches that he tried to fight, and also employing at various points Derek Dooley and Jeremy Pruitt. There's obviously some questionable decision-making being happening there. And Brian Daboll has been not single-handedly responsible for one of the best developmental quarterback prospects in Josh Allen that we've seen, but he's obviously played hugely to the strengths of that player and allowed him to develop in a meaningful way, because Josh Allen was also a high draft pick. I looked at him in his first year, and I thought he was god-awful. I had no idea, in the way that talent scouts will tell you all over the place, that they knew Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming was going to be able to do, not with the way that they worked around his accuracy, not with the way that they improved the fundamental things about playing the quarterback position, the decision-making. There's still some errant throws, but Josh Allen has the physical gifts to overcome it. Daniel Jones, slick does too. Like those 80-yard runs or those chunk plays that he's able to break off with his legs, like we talked about, he may trip and fall over himself before he gets to the end zone, but that's still enough to put them in position to score. And when the margin for error is so thin and your offense is honestly just as much an unknown if you're the Titans, I'd look at that situation and think, okay, like keying on their run game, both with Saquon and with Daniel Jones, is going to be as important as anything that they do on Sunday.
Josh Allen was probably more of a project coming out, right, than even Daniel Jones, as far as reining in his athleticism and the accuracy issues and the defenses he faced in college compared to what Daniel Jones faced at Duke.
Oh, there's no question. He was absolutely a bigger or a bigger unknown. But it's you're operating with talent ceiling. Like I could say that Patrick Mahomes was less of a known commodity than Daniel Jones was coming out of college, right? Because there's just you see the ability, you see some of the decision making that needs to be reined in, or some of the frenetic movement in the case of Mahomes, like he just kind of drifts in the pocket unnecessarily. Sometimes that creates things like pressure and that you may be causing unto yourself outside of what the defense is putting in front of you. But Daniel Jones is very much a known commodity. It's how much more Brian Daboll can refine that known commodity and kind of break some of these bad habits that he's developed over time. He's had terrible protection. He's had terrible coaching. They've done better to upgrade the skill position players, but it's still not like an over. It's more like I look at them and I think gadget's the wrong word, because you're obviously putting in personnel groupings in certain situations. So it's not like it's actually gadget plays, but like Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson scream to me, okay, we're going to find just ways to get playmakers in space and try and scheme things around the quarterback in a way that will take the burden significantly off him. That's what I see when I see the New York Giants offensive personnel. And then Kenny Golladay with an ungodly bloated contract and not finishing run blocks in the middle of the preseason. Who's to say? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. 615-737-1045 about where the Titans best match up with the New York Giants on Sunday. Coming up next, though, you're going to hear from quarterback Ryan Tannehill, his thoughts about the opponent coming up and how he's feeling heading into week one with his first real appearance in Nissan Stadium since their last season came to a calamitous end. You'll hear from the Titans quarterback coming up next. Welcome back, live from the Battle of the Badges here at Nissan Stadium. Looks like the Sheriff's Department is currently in the lead on the leaderboard, LITER, for this great blood drive that they are running out here today. Ryan Tannehill, Titans quarterback, is at the podium answering questions about the New York Giants, this Week 1 upcoming opponent. Let's go to St. Thomas Sports Park live now.
So, Ryan, after not playing in the preseason, how ready are you for Sunday to get back out on the field and play in a game?
I'm really excited. It's been a long training camp of playing our own defense and going through that back-and-forth battle each and every day. I'm excited to face the challenge of playing another defense.
Ryan, the Bengal, you talked in the offseason about how you kind of the dark place you were in and whatnot. Is that game maybe still like a central fuel for you entering 2022, or is it at the point to where it's just, all right, new season, just kind of do what I've always done?
Yeah, no doubt I have a burning fire inside of me. There's no question about that. But at this point, it's a new season. What happened last year doesn't matter. But no doubt there's a passion and fire burning.
You've talked about the struggles getting over that loss, just playing another game, starting a new season, kind of put all that behind you, maybe officially.
It's been behind me. I think, like I mentioned in the past is the past. It's a fuel. It's a fire, like I said, inside of me. But the past is the past, and I'm ready for this year.
What do you expect from the Giants, and what's maybe going to be the biggest challenge in Week 1?
It's a multiple defense. I think that that's something Wink does a really good job of over the years. Faced him several times in Baltimore. He's going to throw a lot of different stuff at you. They have a strong, athletic front. Some secondary players. Dory, who's been here, athletic, can run, can match guys. So it's a talented defense, but they're going to throw the kitchen sink at you, and you got to be ready.
I was going to say, the blitzes are coming. What's sort of your responsibility in helping the offensive line out pre-snap there?
Yeah, just making sure we're trying to get into a good play. Whether it's a protection check, a run check, whatever the case may be. Having a plan. They're going to throw something that we haven't seen at us. They do every time. So just being able to adjust to it, within the game and try to get yourselves in good situations.
Do you find yourself spending a little more time with the receivers this week? Just fine-tuning sight adjustments and those things?
Yeah, we've been going against our defense, so it hasn't been a whole lot of nuances outside the normal meetings. There's constantly that back and forth, but this is the first game plan we've had with a few of these guys on this team. So, going through that process of what it looks like on third down, what it looks like in situational football against this specific defense.
What do you kind of expect in the past about developing trust with the receivers and learning what they want and then learning what you want? Does the circle of trust get a little smaller and tighter on third down sometimes?
Well, I think just the course of the season, right? I mean, we started out with I don't know how many receivers and tight ends, and now that we're up to Week 1, that circle has shrunk. So yeah, there's definitely a natural process there of fine-tuning the guys who are going to be getting the majority of the reps with us on Sunday. And then specifically within that, certain plays, certain guys are going to be highlighted or have the key adjustments. So just making sure we're on the same page throughout that process.
Request for big plays, how much of it is receivers doing more, gaining more separation, winning, and how much of it is what you guys can do scheme-wise?
I think there's a balance to all of it. I think it all works together. It's cliche, but it's the truth. You have to have the right play call to catch the right defense, then you have to be able to execute it. Have the receivers run a good route, get open, have time to make the throw, and then obviously make the throw in a good location to make the play. So, there's a lot that goes into it, but when you do get those advantages and you got the right play call, then it's up to the players to make it happen.
How imperative you guys do better in that department?
Well, we want to be effective each and every time we get a chance to execute a play, whether it's a short yardage play, a third down play, or you get a chance to take a shot down the field. You only get a few real chances at it per game, and want to take advantage of them.
Ryan, pass protection by any measure took a pretty big nosedive last year for you guys. What's your sense right now for how that was addressed in the offseason? How do you feel about that aspect of the offense going into Sunday?
Yeah, I'm excited about our guys. I think we've had a good camp. Guys are playing with a lot of confidence, feeling healthy. I think that was part of the challenge last year. But our guys are playing well. They're playing together. They're growing together each and every day. And I I have a lot of confidence in them in front of me.
On that point with Lawan, especially coming off the ACL last year, everybody remembers what happened in the first game.
Strike one.
What's your sense specifically for him and how different maybe he looks because he hasn't had a rehab offseason, and also Aaron and Taylor next to each other in that partnership?
Yeah, you have to ask Taylor exactly how he feels. I don't know, just from looking at him, he looks good. He's moving around well. I have a ton of confidence in the way he's playing. And then, Bruce stepped in. He's a guy who stepped in for us in specific situations in the past, at center, at guard, played some big roles in key games for us. And he's earned the spot to go out there and be our starting left guard. So excited for him, excited for this opportunity in him. And then, Nick on the right side, young guy coming in. Obviously has all the physical tools that you look for and has really settled into that right side. So, excited to have all those guys in front of me.
Traylon missed a lot of.
Josh only been here a few days, but obviously you look at him, he checks all the boxes of looking the part. Made a bunch of plays in his career. So, as he gets assimilated into our offense and learns what we're doing and what we're about here, hopefully he can keep progressing.
Ryan, Traylon missed a lot of the offseason, obviously, but I guess from the start of camp to now, what kind of progress have you seen? How has he maybe kind of made up for some of that lost time that he had?
Yeah, some of that lost time is tough. You don't get it back, but he's done a good job of trying to take advantage of opportunities he's had when he's been out there. He's made some plays for me, throughout training camp, down the field, made some physical tough catches, shown to win on press coverage, shown to win on off coverage. So has some range, tracks the ball really well. So I have a lot of confidence, even though we may not have the number of reps that we wished. If he would have been healthy the whole offseason. He's taken advantage of plays when he's been in there, so I have a ton of confidence going his way.
Is it a work in progress for him and maybe for most rookie receivers, I guess, as their first year goes?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're constantly learning. I'm still a work in progress in year 11. So you try to take advantage of every day you get out there on the practice field. Every rep is a growing experience, whether it worked out the way we wanted to or it didn't. We can learn from it and be better for it.
Coach had mentioned the pain and discomfort he's kind of been working through in practice. Maybe it's not always easy to do that as a rookie, but how helpful is that just to kind of push him through that, because knowing the season is long, you're going to have those bumps and bruises?
Yeah, no doubt. It's been huge for me. Give me a lot of confidence in him. Seeing him, get nicked in practice and then come back and battle through it. You can tell he's hurting, but he's out there. He's pushing through. I think we all gain respect for each other, and we know things aren't perfect and they're not going to be perfect, but if you can find a way to battle through and try to rally for your guys around you, it makes an impact. We did that in the game, I think the last preseason game, where he kind of got dinged up and wanted to be back in there and show that he can continue to make plays even while maybe nicked up. So definitely a good thing to see from a young guy.
How much do you admire a guy like Cody Hollister's stick-to-itiveness, his resolve, as long as he's been in the league and as little as he's actually played?
I mean, the guy's a warrior. You look at what he's done in his career and his time here. Just the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs. But he shows up every day. He's in this building. He works hard. You can count on him. He knows where he's going to be. He knows what he's going to be doing, and so it gives the guys around him a lot of trust in knowing that, hey, he may not get every rep. He may not constantly be the guy that's out there, but if he does get in there, he's going to know exactly what to do and give us a chance.
For you as a quarterback, have you noticed any difference in playing for a defensive-minded coach like Mike Vrabel as opposed to some of the other ones, maybe Coach Philbin or whoever in the past?
Oh, there's definitely differences. Not going to get into all of them, but there's definitely a difference playing for a defensive head coach compared to an offensive.
That's Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill meeting with the media ahead of the New York Giants coming in here on Sunday. We're broadcasting live from the Battle of the Badges today. Blaine, Mickey are going to be out here after I am. They are going today until 4 o'clock. Listen, we're going to talk about the Titans, but here's what I need you to do, because the lovely ladies from the Red Cross just came up and told me about the objective that they have. 225 people. There are far more than that within the sound of my voice right now. 225 people need to come to Nissan Stadium and donate blood today to make sure that they hit their goals. It's an incredible opportunity to give back to somebody who may be in dire need of that blood donation. You have no idea just how far it can go. So 225 of you, we're going to hammer this throughout the rest of the afternoon to make sure that they hit their deadline by 4 o'clock as we broadcast live at Nissan Stadium on the East Club, by the way, if you're coming by. The East Club is where we are located for the Battle of the Badges blood drive today. Right now, I'm looking at the leaderboard, LITER. Looks like the Sheriff's Department is still in the lead with Nashville Fire directly behind it and the Metro Nashville Police trailing in third right now. So let's see if we can't make up some on behalf of Metro Nashville PD and get some people out here to donate for a great cause like the Red Cross. We are going to get into Ryan Tannehill, what he had to say coming up next, and expectations for him this season. You heard him in his own words. He's got a fire burning deep within him. How much does that actually count for anything once they start play on Sunday? We'll talk about it next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Titans are on the practice field preparing for Sunday's Week 1 kickoff against the New York Giants at Nissan Stadium. Head coach Mike Vrabel spoke to the media a few minutes ago, was asked about running back Derrick Henry's workload on Sunday.
I think we have
.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour off and rolling. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone, live from Nissan Stadium today for the 14th annual Battle of the Badges blood drive to benefit the American Red Cross. We're happy to have you with us today. They would be incredibly happy to have you if you're out riding around on your lunch break. Why not stop by, donate some blood, save a life in the process? It's an incredibly good cause that Metro Nashville PD, the Nashville-Davidson County Sheriff's Office, and the Nashville Fire Department teaming up with the Red Cross to make sure that they can make this thing happen. You have until 4 p.m. today to show up and donate blood. You don't need to make an appointment. They have snacks here for you as well. Make sure your blood sugar doesn't get too low. Maybe Allen Kirby give you a Pepsi out of his stash. Kirby says no because he's selfish. What are you going to do? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. So, Vanderbilt quarterback Mike Wright going to be here in 15 minutes. He's been on an absolute tear here lately, and I'm looking forward to talking to him ahead of their big game this weekend against Wake Forest with, it sounds like, quarterback Sam Hartman. Yes, he's returning to the lineup for the Vandy game?
According to Pete Thamel.
Well, that sounds problematic for that Vanderbilt defense. Elon kind of gave him a little bit of a scare in the second half. I went back and watched that game earlier in the week just out of curiosity to see, one, what Mike was doing rather than just catching the highlights, and two, to kind of see why that score was closer against Elon than it probably should have been. And I think that second half kind of put it on him a little bit. But either way, Mike is one of the most exciting players in college football right now, truly, and what he's accomplished so far through these first two games. And getting Vandy to a 2-0 start should be commended, and we will do so in about 10 minutes from now. In the meantime, we got to look at this situation for Ryan Tannehill. We got to talk about realistic expectations for this dude heading into 2022. The Giants come into this game as the team with far more pressure on them. Daniel Jones is under a considerable amount of pressure himself at the quarterback position. But when it comes to setting the tone, as cliche as that is, for what this season will be, Ryan Tannehill is going to have more scrutiny on him than any other player on the Tennessee Titans roster this week and moving forward. That's just what. Where's the Boris Johnson drop? Do we have that in the background somewhere?
But them's the breaks.
Them is the breaks, Boris. By the way, England got a new prime minister yesterday, one not surrounded in scandal and constant, what parties that he's throwing in the middle of COVID and all these things.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's correct. But as Boris just well articulated, and I would love to hear that again, sometimes.
But them's the breaks.
What are you going to do? So them's the breaks for Ryan Tannehill. And how he responds to this is going to be a significant storyline throughout the course of the year. And, of course, has the ability to vault them forward and help them stay alive in this hugely competitive AFC, or completely derail their chances at being truly competitive in the meantime. Meaningfully competitive, not just making the playoffs, because they've done that. That's now the standard. You make the postseason, especially when you play in the worst division in football. You have run the worst division in football the last 2 years straight. I don't know that they should necessarily be favored in the AFC South again. In fact, I think they're not in most sports books, especially after the Harold Landry situation. But the pressure on Ryan Tannehill is such that you look around and you say, okay, if this guy looks anything but impressive on Sunday, the conversation is going to start back up. And he was asked, I believe, by Ben Arthur at his press conference just a little while ago about kind of the mental state he's in, and this was the Titans quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt I have a burning fire inside of me. Yeah, there's no question about that. But at this point, it's a new season. What happened last year doesn't matter. But no doubt there's a passion and fire burning.
So passion and fire burning are all well and good, and we know Tannehill's off-season exploits and how he's looked to kind of get himself in a mentally better space ahead of this situation and kind of come into this with a clean slate. And Derrick Henry has talked about this as well. Tannehill's not the only one that was impacted. And by the way, Tannehill's not the only one who performed poorly in that playoff game. I think people are a lot, understandably, a lot easier on Derrick because of the circumstances, and that's correct. But Derrick Henry also did not perform up to expectation in that playoff game. And that is something that it seems like the vast majority of people, if you're playing favorites, seem far more willing to gloss over, and something that needs to consistently be a part of the discussion around both of them throughout the entire course of the season, not just what it looks like in week one. So what does that burning fire account for? I mean, who could possibly project that right now? But what Ryan Tannehill is, and what Ryan Tannehill has been in this offensive system and with this coaching staff, has been a hugely successful player. We have not seen him rebound truly from this kind of adversity before. The way they lost was soul-crushing. It was back-breaking. It's the kind of loss that lives on in memory far longer than, Blaine Gabbert in Week 17 winning in and you missing the postseason because Marcus Mariota was a 6 a.m. scratch. Worse than going to the Patriots after beating the Chiefs with Mike Mularkey as the head coach and just getting smoked in the divisional round because, of course, you had no business being there in the first place. No, you were the number one overall seed. You have not been discussed as such since then. And even then, we remember we had Aaron Schatz on. I'd like to bring Aaron back on, as a matter of fact, at some point ahead of before we get too deep in the season and people start to critique things like DVOA and stuff like that, because I think Aaron and the Football Outsider staff do a great job forecasting this kind of stuff. But how close Ryan Tannehill returns to form defines how far they go this year. Full stop. And what that looks like exactly, if it's anything close to what it looks like in camp, it's a far more focused, vocal, and crisp version of Tannehill than I have seen in the 3 training camps previous that he's been here. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. So from one quarterback with expectations to another, a lot of burden on Vanderbilt quarterback Mike Wright to kind of help elevate this program. So far through their 2-0 start, he has done exactly that. And with a big game coming up this week against Wake Forest, we'll talk to Mike on the radio show coming up next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Most certainly we are. Welcome back live from Nissan Stadium today. We're broadcasting for the Battle of the Badges. Still have your opportunity until 4 p.m. to come out and donate blood to the American Red Cross for a fantastic cause. Speaking of fantastic, Mike Wright, Vanderbilt quarterback, joins us right now on the show. First of all, Mike, it's great to meet you over the phone. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you yet. But my guy, you have been on an absolute tear.
Oh yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. I know I can't see your face, but your voice sounds good to me, so we're all good, man.
Absolutely. It seems to be all good in the world of the Commodores right now. I know you got a big opponent, and you don't want to get too ahead of yourself 2 games into the season, but this seems to have been as close to a dream start as you guys could have had as a program.
Yeah, I think one thing that, I'm not a guy who believes in momentum, but I am a guy who believes in growth. So I think we've just grown as a program and as a team these, just this off season and just putting it on display right now. So we'll keep continuing to grow, and just kind of like you said, just a dream start. But, for us, that was something we expected to do. And so just going out there and just playing football and just having fun while doing it, yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Mike, about the idea of momentum, because that's something I've always struggled in as somebody who analyzes this stuff for a living. Like, how does one quantify momentum? So how I guess for the audience do you discern between what most people would consider to be momentum and true tangible growth that you're seeing, not only in yourself and your performance, but in the performance of your teammates and the way that you are working together so well with the coaching staff?
Yeah, I like you said, I'm just a guy who just believes and just continue to progress forward. And I think that's just what we're doing, as a team and as an offense, as a defense, as a special teams unit, and just when you're just starting to get the flow, it's just you just showing up that you're just getting 1% better in just areas on the field. So I think we're just growing right now. And, that's the plan for us. Our goal is to play at the highest level as a team and as a program. And so we just want to take, one step every single day. And so we'll continue to, take those strides. And, some days we might take 2 steps and some days we might take 3, but that's our plan, just to keep on growing. So that's what we'll do.
How did you kind of, and I've heard you talk about this before, Mike, whether it's at SEC Media Days or any of the availability that you've had so far, but kind of, that growth is something that all of us have been curious about to see how you guys were going to do in this second year of the program's new direction and kind of see how that manifested itself. For you, what did the offseason look like, or when did you start to formulate the plan, or as a program, as a team, start to formulate your plan? Okay, this is what we want to accomplish. This is what our expectations are. Now, here's how we're going to go about executing them.
It started as soon as we hopped off the field at the Orange School for our last game last year, and I hate
the Orange
revisiting
School.
the past. But that's when it started, and like it's just a determination and just a different mindset that we adopted within this team. And then at that point, it was just all about preparation. So it started off in the winter in the weight room and on through the spring and fall camp in the summer, and it's just a different level of determination. Us buying into Coach Lee's message, and Coach Lee has done an amazing job as far as getting guys on the same page and building a program and creating a mindset and an identity within this team. And then the next step was just owning it. Once you believe in it, you have to own it. And so just us owning our mindset, owning our identity, and just the determination, just the preparation, and just going out there and just having fun, just playing free. So that's pretty much it.
Vanderbilt quarterback Mike Wright is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. A big game coming up at First Bank Stadium this Saturday, 11 a.m., number 23, Wake Forest, coming to town. Mike, this is a tremendous opportunity for you guys to kind of show the growth that we've talked about here against a top 25 opponent, and it seems like they're going to be closer back to their full measure with quarterback Sam Hartman expected to make his return. What's kind of stood out about the Wake defense, though, in your tape study this week?
Yeah, I think they're really talented on defense and real physical. And so I just think, when we're watching film and, just analyzing different guys, just understanding, what guys are out there, what personnel, what packages are they throwing at us. And seeing how they'll adjust to us. And so, but no, they're really talented on defense. They're good up front, good on the back end too. But I mean, we'll be ready for it. I mean, we're not shying away from anybody. We're not, taking a different mindset just because of who we're playing. We'll play Vanderbilt football. We'll stay true to our identity, and we'll be ready to go this weekend.
There's a lot of Vanderbilt fans in the audience, Mike, that are just excited to hear that kind of care in your voice, and when they hear Coach Lee and other players and staff members talk about that, because that's been something that it's been, I'm sure you've experienced this in a variety of different ways. That care is something that sometimes the program, the things around the program may have lacked, and to hear that kind of passion in your voice about it, even though I've heard you talk about this several times, I think
Right.
that really identifies, or a lot of people really do identify with that aesthetic.
Yeah, I think, well, one, I'll start with this. It's easy to play for a guy, and by a guy I mean Coach Lee. It's easy to play for a coach who truly believes in you and believes in the growth in the program. So that's where it starts. It starts up top. And so, the mindset that Coach Lee has, the true passion and the true love that he has for all of his players, all of his coaches, everybody on staff, and this university in general, it trickles down. And so it's so easy to play for a guy like Coach Lee. And then we're closer than we've ever been as far as just, whether or not it's an athletic team or any type of team, when you truly believe in the guy next to you and you truly have a relationship with the guy to your left and your right, it's easy to play for them too and give it everything that you have. And so when you're out there, we're basically out there playing as a family out there on the field. And I think you can kind of see it and we can feel it. So you talk about that care, I think that's where it comes from.
Mike Wright, Vanderbilt quarterback, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Wake Forest coming to town Saturday, 11 a.m. at First Bank Stadium is where you can see this game. It's going to be exciting. I expect to see a big crowd out there to support what Vandy is doing right now. Now, Mike, you brought up that Orange School, and my executive producer is a noted homer. He's an alumni of the Orange School. He has been out here trying to lead the campaign against Vanderbilt these past 2 weeks. I would like you to take him to task because, frankly, I'm tired of what he's trying to do.
Now, first, Mike, before you do that, just know that this is Buck lashing out because Diana Rossini of ESPN said that I have a better voice than he does.
That's not why this is happening.
And you have bigger problems than this week. You're preparing for a ranked matchup, a big game in Nashville against Wake Forest. So pay Buck no mind. He is completely lashing out of pure jealousy.
I think he's lying to you, Mike. I don't think that sounds like all BS to me. You seem like you are hugely discerning. I'm certain that you can see through what Lucas is trying to throw up in front of you there.
No, I'm not mad at him at all. I have two parents who went to the Orange School as well, so I give them a little backlash for it too all the time. But I'll put it this way: just the support from the Vanderbilt fans, this entire off season and in the beginning of the season has been tremendous. So I think, just the level of appreciation that the guys on this team and everybody within this organization has for the Vanderbilt fans who are out there who have, constantly been with us through the adversity and with us winning the response too, it's just been amazing. So, I appreciate them, for the Orange fans who are, on the radio right now. And, hey, listen, hey, awesome for you.
He's
I appreciate
Mike Wright.
that. I love
He's
that.
Vanderbilt's quarterback. He's not here for your crap, Lucas. He just basically told you to bleep off. Mike, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Continued health and success throughout the course of the season. It's been a real thrill to watch you so far.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I much appreciate it.
That's Mike Wright, Vanderbilt's quarterback. I told you, Lucas, I was going to get you.
Hey, no, you did. You told me. And Mike Wright, man, that is a guy that if you're a Vanderbilt fan listening, like if that conversation didn't make you want to go to the game on Saturday,
buddy, I'm fired up. If I didn't have a funeral situation this weekend, I would absolutely be at First Bank Stadium because I mean this is the opponent that I very much intended. Given that the Titans play at home on Sunday, I very much intended to go to this game, and it just some unfortunate circumstances have kind of derailed that plan for me personally. But I really hope that people support what they are doing right now because this is a fantastic opportunity for them. And he's a legitimate star. He's a legitimate star. I understand that the level of competition is something that people might turn their noses up at, and that they still play in the SEC, and that is ultimately what they will be judged upon, whether they are able to get a conference win this year in ways that eluded them in 2021. But they have clear and obvious direction, and he's not alone in doing this, but damned if he's not trying to carry them as far as he is physically able. And that should just fire you up. It doesn't matter if you're a Tennessee fan, a Vanderbilt fan, no matter how you feel about a different institution than your rooting allegiances are for. Like, that is passion, that is care. That's why when he talked about, not necessarily buying in on things of momentum, I've never identified with a professional athlete, or rather with an athlete, more than in that sense, because it's not real. It's just something people say. And Mike, he clearly doesn't say things just to say things. That's what drives me crazy about quarterbacks at the pro level that I'm not hearing from Mike Wright. And it's, that permeates through a program.
I mean, when's the last time that Vanderbilt fans had a guy they could rally around like that? That just hearing a conversation, an interview, could get them fired up for a game like Wake Forest. Like Kyle Shermer carried the torch for this team for years at quarterback.
Shermer, just because by nature of talent, and, he was obviously, he ended up in the pros for a couple of years to his credit, but he was never that kind of inspiring, respectfully.
And you don't win football games on a microphone or during an interview, but it does have to be refreshing for Vanderbilt fans to hear that after the last few years since Kyle Shermer. Really rooting for Mike Wright.
I am inclined to agree with you. So again, if you are out and about on Saturday and you are looking for a fun college football matchup to attend, you've got none better than one sitting in your backyard at First Bank Stadium, which is, of course, now the new naming rights for Vanderbilt's home field. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in on the conversation if you would like to. We are out here, by the way, at Nissan Stadium, speaking of stadiums, for the Battle of the Badges. Now, I know a lot of y'all are driving around on your lunch break right now. If you have the time and you want to donate blood to save lives for the American Red Cross and help what the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and Metro Nashville PD are out here to support, come by Nissan Stadium. They're looking for about 225 more donors before 4 p.m. today. I know Blaine and Mickey are going to hammer this as well. But if you got the time, you've got the energy, we've got the snacks out here for you. If you feel like your blood sugar dips, and if you're somebody like me who's not a fan of needles, just don't look. It's a really, really easy, painless process. You'll be in and out in a heartbeat. Let's go to Nick in. Oh, Lucas, you're going to have to say it because I'll butcher it.
No, say it.
Shelbyville?
Close enough. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hey, guys. You got to pretend like you got rocks in your mouth and say it like shovel.
It's like I have gotten that. I'm down with Lafayette. Like I've got the pronunciations down for the state of Tennessee, but Shelbyville is still something that eludes me.
Well, when you make a living trying to enunciate clearly, it's kind of hard to put rocks in your mouth, I guess.
It's very counterintuitive. What you got for us, Nick?
Right. Well, earlier, first of all, let me say thanks for you guys, what you do. I enjoy the show. I listen to it when I can. Thanks for what you're doing with the blood drive. I think that's a big deal. Earlier you had mentioned that you thought that it was worth mentioning that Derek, looked bad in that game against Cincinnati in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to argue with you and tell you that's not true, because it was true. I'm more wondering what your view might be on the decision to play him as much as he did when Foreman had clearly had the hot hand coming in and actually performed, I thought, better in that game than Derek did. It seemed like Cincinnati hadn't schemed for him. It seemed like when he was in, he did really well. And so I wonder about the coach's decision to play Derek at that time. I mean, I know he was coming back off of injury. We had an extra week there. I guess I understand the mentality of wanting to do that, but I don't understand it from the perspective of when you see things happening in the game when Derek's clearly being keyed on. He's coming back off of however many weeks, 12 weeks or whatever, of rest, and Foreman has the hot hand. What kind of a decision behind the scenes do the coaches play into that? I mean, I know that you got your feature back. He's millions of dollars. You probably want to get him out on the field from an investment perspective and crowd energy perspective. But, we were there to win the Super Bowl. I don't need Derek on the field if Foreman's doing great to win that Super Bowl. So I just wanted to ask about that question. If you'll put me on hold, I'd like to listen to your answer. Thanks.
I appreciate the call, Nick. Go ahead and put him on hold, Lucas, as we play him out with the Oscars music. You know the rules. 60 seconds on the clock once your call begins. If not, you get the hook. But that was a good call. So Mike Vrabel was actually asked about Derrick Henry's workload to kind of start the press conference today, which I thought was a pretty unique place to start, but it kind of, everybody's thinking the same thing. I did 3HL yesterday, and they actually asked me about players that I was most interested in watching, and my answer was Derrick. And it seems that my brethren in the media corps had the same approach with Mike Vrabel today.
I mean, I think we have to just go in with the approach that, there's a game plan and we're going to try to execute it and we're going to do everything we can to win. We feel really good about the guys that we have and try to find a role for each of those backs. And, but Derrick's a large part of what we do.
So Mike's answer there is indicative of what the philosophy is. Nick asked about, the decision to play Derrick as much as they did in the playoff game. Not that we need to relitigate every decision made in the Bengals game. But, of course, that's something that comes up. Now, based on the conversations that we all had that week, it felt like they felt that was, if they're going to go out, if they're going to fire their shot, like their best shot, they feel 10 times out of 10 has been Derrick. So if this is the only opportunity to get Derrick involved, because it was the first opportunity in, 12 weeks, I think, in total, from Indianapolis to the playoff game, then they felt that they, better to go out with your biggest guns, even if he may have been a fraction of himself. I'm not saying that Derrick, if you're out there, you play, and you are held to the standard that on-field performance requires. But I think that the scrutiny on Derrick is fair when it comes to both his performance physically and the usage by the coaching staff. Because, listen, kids, they gave him a $2 million raise this year, but they did not put any more guaranteed money on that deal, which means that Derrick Henry is going to continue to get carry after carry after carry until it can't carry no more. And the question just becomes, okay, at what point does the superhuman start to look a little more mortal? Does it happen this year? Does it happen 5 years from now? Nobody could possibly tell you. But when you look at it and you look at the usage rate and how early they're probably going to have to rely on him as the rest of the offense kind of starts to form its own identity around him, I would expect those same conversations to be a big part of our weekly meetings, our multiple weekly meetings with Mike Vrabel after and before games. 615-737-1045, live from the Battle of the Badges blood drive. Let's go to Ronnie in Hendersonville.
Yes. I've got a question too.
Okay.
We're not holding Ryan Tannehill to the same accountability as some of the other quarterbacks. You got Russell Wilson that threw a wide open pass that cost them the Super Bowl to a defensive back from New England. And what do we do with Russell Wilson? We give him a trainload of money and we ship him to Broncos. And we talk about how great he is.
Well, Ronnie, think about this. If that interception that Matt Stafford threw to the chest of the San Francisco 49ers safety, they're not in the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, the conversation around Stafford completely changes. This is kind of the same prism that you're talking about for Tannehill, right?
Yeah, only Tannehill was playing with 95 players and Derrick Henry and his best wide receivers on the sidelines for half a year, Great job. He had a bad game. I will say that. He had a bad game, but my goodness, he had a lot of good games. He's a great quarterback.
He's certainly the best option that you've had. In the era of Titans football since Steve McNair. I don't think there's any disputing that at this point. As far as effectiveness and the ability to string together consecutive winning seasons and postseason appearances. And I was talking about this with 3HL. They asked me, I did my weekly hit with them yesterday as opposed to Monday when we typically do. And they asked me which player I was most interested in watching, and my answer was Derrick, solely because, how successful they are with that rushing attack early on, I think is going to allow them more breathing room if they're successful than later in the season. But really, even though I've watched him every day at practice for the last 3 months, 4 months, the answer is still Tannehill, because once you come back into an environment like this one where you are being watched as closely by your own fan base as you are by everybody else who's scrutinizing these games and breaking down the X's and O's and the execution, of course this stuff is going to come up, especially when the quarterback himself has volunteered that this legitimately affected his psyche. Okay, well, let's see what comes of that. I know we're going to talk about this on pregame with Blaine Bishop and Mickey Ryan when we host the Lee Company Countdown to kickoff 3 hours before the Titans face the Giants on Sunday. Let's go to Phil in Portland up next. Hello, Phil.
But listen, that guy that just called in owes me another beer. I just spilled my beer over here when he compared Tannehill to Russell Wilson. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, am I in Looney Loon world or something? I mean, this guy, I understand he was talking about the situation, but Tannehill is nowhere comparison to a Russell Wilson, because I can tell you right now, if the Titans had a chance to get Russell Wilson and kick Tannehill out here, he'd have been gone a long time ago. But I do want my beer replaced, so if he's listening, just tell him to call you, Buck, and I'll give you my address.
Absolutely. I think the bigger story here is that our guy Phil in Portland is already imbibing Wednesday at 12:40 in the afternoon. Hey, drink another one for us, Phil, and for Ronnie in Hendersonville. Now, listen, they're probably closer than you would think. I think a lot of people, Russell Wilson is a famous name, and he's won a Super Bowl to his credit. But in those Super Bowl wins, Russell Wilson was far more passenger than he was driver of what that Seattle Seahawks team was. And when they were at their best, he was far more passenger to the running game and to Marshawn Lynch. There are comparisons to be made there. Now, Russell is obviously the more physically talented player, although some of those talents are starting to be in decline, especially when you look at what he's looked like the last 2 seasons, the finger issue notwithstanding. So I don't balk at that outright, even though, it may sound ghastly hearing that, so much so that he spilled his beer at 12:40 in the afternoon. All right, more of your phone calls, last call for them coming up next. We'll do some polls, final push to come out here for us to show up for the Battle of the Badges blood drive at Nissan Stadium. While you're on your lunch break, donate some blood, save a life. We'll be hanging out here for the rest of our show, and Blaine and Mickey after that. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Wrapping up from the Battle of the Badges here on 104.5 The Zone. Still time for you to come out and donate blood. Our programming out here does not end. Mickey and Blaine are out here, Blaine and Mickey, right after this show, as it is every day from 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas, what's coming up on Blaine and Mickey today?
Blaine and Mickey have Sean Salisbury calling in from Houston, talk some Texans, some AFC South, and Jordan DeJani will give us a Week 1 NFL preview, and then may have an injury report at some point throughout the show.
You will have an injury report on Blaine and Mickey, so you'll learn a lot more about who is practicing for the Titans, and if they are not practicing, what kind of injuries they are dealing with. So make sure you're tuned in, of course, all day long. Last call for phone calls before we do some polls. Let's go to Eric in Gallatin, who wants to jump in. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Going great.
Everybody's giving old Tannehill a hard time about throwing that last interception, but how much of it goes on the coaches for going for that 2-point conversion instead of taking the extra point? And Tannehill maybe would have had to been in that position to throw the ball.
It's such a, and Lucas, as soon as I said we're not going to relitigate the Bengals game today, what happened? We're relitigating the Bengals game, and that's fine. That's the last sample size of Titans football we have to talk about. I completely understand the feeling. But it's never one thing, right? It's not Tannehill throwing 3 interceptions. It's not a failed 2-point conversion play. It's not Jamar Chase running through your secondary at various points, and it's not the fact that Joe Burrow was able to overcome 9 sacks and still find a way to win a playoff game. It's not only that Evan McPherson outright beat you with some incredible field goal kicking, as he did. It's all of the things. All of the things resulted. It's why you feel the way that you feel. It's not one specific moment, even though Tannehill is the face of that moment until the end of time. There will be nothing that he will be able to do that. You know this. I know this. Eric and Gallatin knows this. Everybody does. That's who you associate with that greatest failure, that most recent failure. But the reality of the situation is it's always a combination of circumstances, an accumulation that, culminated, unfortunately, for them in an interception on the final offensive play. All right. Shall we do some polls?
Why so serious?
Is this a new one?
Let's put a smile on that face. I don't know where the Batman is.
Oh, no, that's right. I just haven't heard it in a long time.
Here's Lucas Panzica on the Buck Rising Show. Update the polls, Lucas. Here we go.
I love that he got the Batman music for it, too.
And it's presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They deliver the car straight to your house once it's manufactured. What is the dumbest thing in sports this week? Puka says it's Jerome Boger being the ref on Sunday.
Yeah, that's dumb. That's some dumb luck if you're a Titans fan. Dumb bad luck, to be sure. Boger watch is already in full effect. I'm sure there's going to be some egregious calls on Sunday between the Titans and the Giants, and Titans fans will feel some kind of way about it no matter how it ends up going down.
Anthony says it's Tennessee being ranked, and I love that he is flooded in the replies by people posting tweets of NFL AFC power rankings showing where the Titans are ranked.
There's a lot of that going around, certainly. I don't know why it would be dumb for Tennessee to be well, I think the whole exercise is largely dumb this early in the season. Frankly, I think everything leading up to the college football playoff, because that's the only thing that actually matters, is largely a wasted exercise, but, such is life.
How confident are you that Vanderbilt can beat Wake Forest with Sam Hartman back at quarterback? Speaking of wasted exercises, 62% say not at all, 33% are 50-50, 5% are very confident.
How do you feel about that game?
Man, I would have felt much better about it if Sam Hartman's not the starting quarterback at Wake. He might come out and remind us, why he was on some of those dark horse Heisman shortlists.
He's a really good player. We've talked about it all offseason long. The ACC is stacked with fun quarterbacks for the various institutions that play in the conference. But I mean, offensively, they seem to be capable. But watching Elon kind of almost not make a comeback, but kind of give it to him a little bit in the second half, the defense is still a concern right now with a smaller sample size like Hawaii and Elon.
Are there 7 SEC teams better than the Vols? 7 SEC teams are ranked ahead of the Vols in the AP Top 25. 75% say no.
The answer is no.
And where is the Titans' greatest advantage over the Giants on Sunday? Puka says the defensive line. Jeff also says the D-line. Many people like the Titans' front.
I would say that the advantage is still there. That offensive line group is better, and it's building with Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas starting to round into form as well as their left tackle drafted a couple of years ago in the first round, but it's still not a good unit. I think that's still the advantage still favors the Titans, and more specifically the passing defense against Daniel Jones. I think you're going to see some opportunities to capitalize and make a play.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's our show. The programming, as we mentioned, is not done. Blaine and Mickey are live from the Battle of the Badges, where the battle wages on the leaderboard. The Sheriff's Department's still in the lead. You have the opportunity to come out here and donate until 4 p.m. Just show up. They'll get you set up and make sure that you can help them save a life for an incredible cause supporting the Red Cross. We will be back tomorrow. Delaney Walker is on the show. Titans fans love Delaney. I'm sure you're going to love the interview that we do with him. It'll be great to catch up. Rhett Bryan as well. Prime time tonight on A to Z Sports. In the meantime, if I don't catch you then, radio show starts at 10.